I'll start that again. I will call us to order at 5:33 p.m. If everyone will please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendships among united cultures. Thank you. And Mrs. Sandoval, roll call, please.
Dr. Archambault? Mrs. Hunt Daly? Mr. Hudemil? Mr. Ortiz? Mrs. Lee?
Present, we do indeed have a quorum. And we now can move to adoption of the agenda. Board members, are there any changes to the agenda? And if so, what? Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation for approval of the agenda as presented?
Madam President, I recommend that we approve the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Thank you. And is there a second? Thank you. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion, board members? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Okay. Dr. Archambault?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daly? Mr. Hudemil?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, motion carries. Adoption of minutes for November 12th. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If so, what? All right. Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation for approval of the minutes as presented?
Madam President, I recommend that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve the minutes from November 12th, 2024 as presented. Is there any discussion, board members? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Archambault?
Yes.
Mr. Hudemil?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Mr. Widener, recognition, sir.
This is too fast. Okay. So tonight we're gonna start off with a remembrance of Coach Otero. And I've asked Mr. Jackie Sanchez if he would come and speak to us a little bit. They're gonna be having a memorial at the school this week, and but I asked him to come talk about Coach Otero.
Thank you. Lorraine, would you please?
So, one of the biggest fear of any school administrator is somebody not going home, a student, a staff member. So in losing Coach Otero at school was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do as an administrator because he didn't go home that day. Anybody who knows Coach Otero, he's the very first one at the campus, like 7 a.m. I think he beats Mr. Joe there. And at the end of the day, he always did his afternoon, his evening runs. And he would leave after the students would leave. Very committed coach. He coached cross country for us. He coached track for us. He's been part of the Grants Bowl County School District for 30 years, retired, missed the students and the athletes and came back. I've always known Coach Otero was well known around the state, but until we got a cry out from the community, and I don't mean the Grants community, I mean the state community, sending their condolences was pretty incredible. Everybody, cross-country, track, the athletic community in the state of New Mexico, reached out to us to send their condolences to the students and the staff. He was such a great inspiration to so many athletes in the state of New Mexico. And was just a monument of what it means to be a Hawk. He retired and then came back this last 2 years ago, and his presence is missed still. His students, as resilient as they can be, you can tell that they feel his presence missing. I don't know if Ms. Sanchez wants to share anything with us about she was being his athletic director. Ms. Sanchez doesn't always like to speak in front of groups, so I won't ask her to, but if she wants to, she's welcome to. But the district support was pretty amazing as well. So I want to thank Ms. Salazar and Mr. Widener for being there that morning, that first day. They brought over Ms. Sanchez from Los Alamitos to counsel our students, Laguna Behavior Health. We had a lot of support for our students. And to see the students lean on each other shows the family unity that we have within the school. To see the staff lean on each other shows the family unity we have at the school. So it's amazing to see us all come together, not just as students, as faculty, but as a district. And to have you guys there really meant a lot. Just your presence alone really was profound to our Hawk community. So I want to thank you. This Friday, we're going to have a celebration of life for him. Everybody's invited, including the community. It'll be in the gym. The doors will open about 9 o'clock, and then we'll start about 10 and go from 10 to about 9 o'clock. And it's gonna be that. It's gonna be a celebration of Coach Otero and what he's done for our athletes and our students. And so we hope you guys are all invited. I hope you guys got the invitation that we had sent out. Ms. Sanchez, do you have anything you want to share? He's very emotional. And so I'm not gonna ask her to for sure, but do you guys have any questions? I really appreciate your guys' support and the love that you guys sent to Laguna. And I know that, like I said, the staff and students do as well. And we hope that we can honor him in the right way. His funeral with the family is this Thursday in Las Lunas. That's where he's from. They've taken him home. We've been in communication with his sister, and they invited us to go, but we've invited them as well. So the family will be there at the remembrance as well, and the celebration of life as well. So thank you guys again for allowing me to share with you Coach Otero, and hopefully if you guys are able to make it, you guys can see what effect he had on the state of New Mexico.
We certainly offer our deepest sympathy and condolences to the Hawk community. We know that he was a huge part of, as you just said, of the community and the kids and everybody there. And we're certainly very sorry for everybody for that very tragic loss. Board members, thank you for being here with us this evening.
Well, I just pause for a moment. Way I remember seeing him just recently, walking down the hall, well, this one was and it's really difficult for those of us who have been with the district for so many years. We think we just was unique ever, and we've seen this, but not with such a fine person as he, who had a gentle relevance to himself. He just seemed to be assured. He knew himself. He was comfortable with himself. He just seemed to reflect that in his relationship with his students. I think he fit well. And that's one of the things that we recognize. He was just part of a family of so many children, so many years. That's why it's going to be well. He was a part of it for so many years, and so you, so many soccer thing, it's about, I guess it's fine. But we do, and at least I express my, and the others, I wish I could have been more closer at one of those days. And just this mistake, but to be there this week with you.
Mr. Wayne.
President Lee, in keeping with the Hawks and the Hawk community, we knew tonight we'd be recognizing a lot about the Hawks, and they have had some outstanding athletes that have done a great job with their fall sports. And so we are headed to state volleyball, and we've completed state cross country. And so Mr. Sanchez, I am gonna make Ms. Sanchez speak. She's gonna come up and help me kind of give some shout outs to those outstanding athletes at Laguna Acoma. I'll come stand with you.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us. We have quite a few athletes that were stellar and represented in the fall sports. And we were fortunate enough to have 3 programs, well, actually 4 programs when you count boys and girls cross country, represent at the state championships. And so in the district with cross country, our cross country team, boys team were the district champions. The girls team were district runner up, so they both got to represent at state as a team. Our district champ was Teguaya Pedro on the boys side. Carter Patricio was 3rd place, Sheldon Jeremiah was 4th place, and Xavier Lorenzo was 6th place. So they all got to stand on the podium with their individual awards to get their medals. In the girls division, we had Rayanne Concho, who was the district champ. We had Mia Smith, who was 2nd place, Justina Brown, who was 7th place, and Alessia Jeremiah, who was 9th place. They got to stand as a team and get their individual medals in the district. And then we went to state, and Teguaya Pedro was a junior. He crossed the finish line first. Out of 175 2A runners, his time of 15:50 is our state champion.
Wow.
So we have Teguaya. Yes. And out of 125 runners in 2A, our state girl runner-up was Rayanne Concho. And so she came in 2nd out of the 125, and Mia Smith took 3rd, who's a sophomore. So at state, we represented. It was beautiful because the kids ran, now I'm gonna get emotional, with a big O across the finish line. So you have pictures, beautiful pictures with a big O running across in a tribute to Coach Otero. It was really nice because at the state championships, several teams represented with the blue ribbon and had a moment of silence for Coach Otero. So they know what kind of impact he had in the running community. The boys team placed 3rd at state, bringing home a state trophy. So as a team, they were 3rd place. And our head coach of the year was Lacey Natsaway on the boys side. And then we had a head coach of the year in volleyball, which was Melanie Garcia in our district. So we had them. So thank you to our coaches. So we had several kids come in at state, and then we had our football team. The first time in 8 years, they made the state playoffs.
Oh,
We're proud of them, they got there. And so we had our first team all district, which is Derek Victorino Jr. I'm just gonna say a quick blurb about him. There's an officials association who pick 2 outstanding athletes who compete with class. They have character on and off the field. They made an impression on the officials. So Derek won a $1,000 scholarship and was named between 1A and 6A one of the officials' stellar compete with class athletes for this year. So Derek got a nice surprise presentation at our last football game. And then we have Akahi Tiller, who was first team all district, Chauncey Gedman, Jaden Daly, and Sean Dutsaway. So this year we had 5 get in compared to 1 last year. So football team did great. So
that's
we're
wonderful.
proud of them. And
Yes.
you want to introduce our volleyball team?
Sure. Their volleyball team has done outstanding thus far. They were 10-0, undefeated in the district. They finished in the Final Four at the state tournament, losing to the state champions in the semifinal game.
They did. They finished their season 22-4.
Wow.
So they did well. They're district champs. The state awards have not been released yet. We have 7 girls who went for all state awards because they performed very well. But we had Madeline Brown, who was the all district team, and she's the all Metro senior academic team. The Metro means everybody in Albuquerque, you have to have a 3.6 or better GPA to be an outstanding volleyball player and athlete, a student athlete. So she made the all Metro senior academic team. We had Gianna Carrillo make the all Metro team, meaning they only picked 12 out of the Metro in 1, 2, and 3A. So she made one of those, and the all Metro senior academic team. We have Sophia Lazos, who made the all district 1-2A team, the all Metro senior academic team. Kaylee Lorenzo made the all district team, the all Metro academic team, and she was also the senior student athlete of the year with the Metro. So we have Kaylee Lorenzo doing that. We have Kaylee Poncho, who was the all district team and then made the all Metro team. And then Brianna Carrillo made the all district team and also the all Metro team. And like I said, Metro is all of the Albuquerque area and the surrounding areas within 40 miles. So those are big awards. And last but not least, we have Sophia Lazos, who is representing us in the Red Green Chili All-Star for volleyball as a setter. And this past weekend, we had Sheldon Jeremiah and Xavier Lorenzo and Rayanne Concho represent in the Red Green Chili All-Star. And so they ran with the all-star team there. That was between 1 and 5A. So we had a very, very successful season. And I'm not saying successful because of a trophy or all these medals. Success because these kids learn more than just how to compete on the court or the field. They're ready for life. Their character shines. They are leaders in the school. Some of them are ambassadors to the state and they represent us through the NMAA. We have 3 students who do that and they're all on this list. So they're just a great product of GCCS, but thanks to everybody who has supported us, not just at LA, but in the district. And every one of you as directors, as school board members, you've been there for our kids and we could not be successful without you. So we thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good, that was good meeting.
So, while you sit down, I just want to brag on Ms. Sanchez and some of the initiatives that she did this year that tells you heard academics a lot within the athletics, which is what we want it to sound like. What Ms. Sanchez did this year was pretty bold. She required every single athlete to attend tutoring for 45 minutes before they can go to practice. Every single athlete. Coaches had to buy into this. They had to adjust their practices, either shorten them or go longer to make sure that every student athlete. At one time, we had about 79 students attending after-school tutoring because the athletes were required, it wasn't optional. But if they didn't, they didn't need support, then the juniors went to SAT prep. The students who needed help got to help each other, but every athlete was required on top of our academics. So when you hear the academic performance of our students, it's not just because those students are doing that, it's the initiative that Ms. Sanchez put forth and made that expectation, met with the coaches. Not one complaint, not one coach was against it. They all said, this is what our students need because they need this for their future, not for Friday night's game. So I want to make sure that she gets acknowledged for that because sometimes she does things that she doesn't like to get props. She does an amazing job as an athletic director, so.
Yes, that's excellent. Very good. Mr. Wyden.
All right, it is that time of the month, the board meeting of the month where we recognize our SEL and our Edu champions. And Mr. Sanchez was talking a little bit ago about how we supported when they were dealing with tragedy. I have to tell you, Ms. Salazar and I came back and we were so impressed with the way they were there for their kids, the way they brought in resources, they reached out, they worked with us to help kind of make the transition back to school good for the kids. And so tonight we're going to, and I'm missing one plaque. But I'm headed to Laguna I'm heading to Laguna Acoma for your Thanksgiving meal. So I will bring the second plaque when I come. Tonight we want to recognize Monica Sanchez and Jackie Sanchez as our SEL. And I'll bring the second plaque.
Okay,
That's what we
thank
share,
you.
we share everything. No time to eat lunch.
Does it turn this way?
It's okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you
Ryan.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for everything that you do for your kids. And finally, Mrs. Lee, you might even have some input on this one.
Yes,
Our
sir.
Edu champion for the month of November is a lady who has worked for the district. She's so flexible. She helps out with whatever we need her to help with. She takes on challenges. Her students at the early college high school love her. Her students in San Rafael love her. And she is just pushing kids to do their best. She's trying to provide opportunities for every student that she works with. And so for the month of, Mrs. Lee, do you want to say anything?
I love this person. This person has been absolutely a champion for any child she has worked with. And I can say that going back to starting, I think, in 2012, when my oldest started at GHS, and she was the counselor, the academic counselor over there, and she helped propel my child to do great things. And she is doing every bit as an amazing job with my second child now at early college. Mrs. Coles.
Tonight we're going to recognize Laura Coles as the Edu champion for November. That's a good one.
The selfie would be great.
Like WWE?
You're so thin now.
But did you catch that? She's a champion for her
You
children,
gotta do the
her
flex.
students.
There you go.
Yes.
Now she's ready to fight Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
She could take him on. She could take him. Oh. Thank you.
Congratulations.
President Lee, that completes the recognitions for tonight.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Sandoval, are there any citizens to address the board this evening?
There are no
There are
citizens.
no citizens. We have presentations, Mr. Widener.
So tonight's first presentation, I introduced Mr. Jones last week. He's now running things in our business office. And so he's going to talk to you about the RFP possibilities for board legal services.
Absolutely. I'm gonna take the notes up. So, one thing that's really good about us being a state entity where we have laws and things that we have to abide by is the procurement process is lined out for us, and we do not stray from that. And what it does is it protects federal, state money, it protects our livelihoods, it protects the board. So when we get into legal services, especially when we talk about like a request for a proposal, we have a tendency to say, let's just call our lawyer and ask us what services they can provide to us. That's totally acceptable, and we can pay for a proposal or for guidelines, a scope of what a contract could entail. But if we, and this is, we have to be very careful. If we ask a law firm or an attorney to help us with the scope of work, they disqualify themselves from being able to bid on that same scope of work. Because they could stack the deck against anybody else by saying, well, you have to have all these things that only we have. And then they basically make it impossible for us. So if there are any questions, this is really simple, not easy, but simple. So if there are any questions, just interrupt me, I can take it in stride. I apologize for not addressing everybody properly, so I'll do so. Madam President, members of the board, directors. This is straight from the procurement code. It's chapter 13, and I'm happy to share this document. It's public with anybody. It has a really nice search function so that you can look up what dollar amounts and all those sorts of things require certain requests. So this would be considered a competitive and sealed proposal, and they should have these elements. The specifications for the services to be procured, all contractual terms and conditions applicable to the procurement, the form for disclosure or of campaign contributions, which isn't super pursuant to us, I guess. The locations where the proposals are to be received, the date, the time, and the place where the proposals are to be received and reviewed. So the reason why they do that is for a number of reasons. One, we want to increase competition, so we need to be super transparent. This is what we're asking for. This is when they're due. We'll accept them up to this date at this time, and they have to be in this form, and it has to be electronic. The second is once we decide on who we want to give us those services, we have a 10-day window where that is public. So if there's any petitions or anything like that, they can air it out. So making sure that everything's fair there as well. And all of this is provided by law. So meaning if we do this according to the guidelines that the procurement code has outlined, we should be totally protected. A request for proposals require that all portion or the responsive proposal will be submitted electronically. In the case of requests for competitive qualification-based proposals, price shall be determined by formal negotiations related to the scope of work. So the reason why that's in there is also to protect us from not saying like, you know, say we get a bid and they said, we'll just bill you $20 an hour for legal services and we can do all of that stuff. That should be a red flag as well. And that helps us kind of weed out those that may not be qualified, because we want, and you have to be careful with this because I think that the general feel is that we go with whatever is cheapest, but that's not the case. We need to go with whatever is most applicable to the scope of work that we have authored or that we have written, so that we make a goodness of fit decision. So if the goodness of fit is more expensive than somebody's uncle that offers legal services out of his garage, then we need to go with what's best. Are there any questions regarding any of this? Is there something that I missed or something that I can address directly?
I have a question. Board members, do you have anything you would like to ask Mr. Cooper before I do?
Oh, wait,
Okay, my question is, once we have fielded the RFP and we have received responses from X number of firms, what is the process that the district, you know, and the board goes through as far as scoring, selecting, and whatnot, that process? Could you explain that?
Yeah, so let's take it back and use another example. So if we had a need for a tractor because we needed to cut down a bunch of weeds, you would write the things down that that tractor would have to have. It would have to have a brush hog, it would have to be so many horsepower, it would need to be, you know, maybe we want to buy new. You know, we want to get all these things, and then basically you entertain all bids and then you can sort through those. So we can really set how we want to score it. If you need further direction on how to score it, like if we need to create a rubric, I'm happy to do that and look at the scope of work and outline it, because I don't have any dog in that fight for legal services. I know that that's not a perfect answer, but that's where we have to start. I think that the reason why, and I'm making assumptions, but the reason why we ask that question is because we want accountability. We want accountability and transparency that whoever we end up hiring actually can do the things that they said that they can do, and they can actually fulfill the contracts that they have. So I think that it might be wise where if we author an RFP for legal services, that maybe they provide references to other school districts that they have worked with. That's not too much to ask, and that's something that you can pick up the phone call and say, hey, let's talk about the services that they offered you or what they can do. And they'll be very vague, but if you have a bad egg, that will be exposed quickly.
And so in that vein, what is the board's actual responsibility as far as the scoring goes? My assumption is that we do not do the scoring because that would be a conflict of interest on our part. However, once the scoring is completed, then we would look and see what it is, and then we would pick at the time. Is that accurate? I have not done an RFP for legal services, so for me, this is something that's a new process for me. So I'm just in general terms asking.
The rule with procurement is that the decision needs to be made with the end user in mind, but that does not mean that the decision belongs to the end user. So if you can come to a consensus and say these are the services that we would like to advertise for, that we can fill that gap, that does not mean that you necessarily have to be the one to score it. We can form a committee, or we can have the directors weigh in on what would be the most appropriate, because then it kind of takes the emotion out of it. You have a rubric and then we score them, and then everything is documented and well maintained, so it's an airtight defense.
Thank you.
Because I'm not, and this is not any accusations or anything, but I mean, Grants is a small community and we have cousins and uncles and aunts and all of those things, so you just have to make sure that whoever's in that committee is impartial to any outcome.
So who does the scoring?
Can we go through this? Madam President?
Absolutely.
And that, I'm gonna get to that, answer that question.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. If you don't mind, Mr. Weiner, I've gone through this, and spent some time on it. I don't have very many, earth-shaking things about it. I do have some conditions that I'd like to expose the board, and it has to do with some of them. But when I went through there, and I marked out my copy on page 1, it says Mansfield County Schools or school district expressing qualification based competitive field proposals for legal counsel. And I added to the board. Things like that. Then I also noticed the date, and you were there gonna clean that out, the dates and stuff like that. It says March 7, 2024. You and the superintendent will figure out.
Yes, because this
the
was
schedule. So we're just.
a
it's like
draft.
template.
a draft,
Okay, so-
obviously, sure.
And then on that same paragraph, at the beginning of page 1, I said, the board shall review the recommendations and make final approval of the awards. The reason I said that is because when I looked at the scope, at the flow chart, it says that the board is going to make the final award. Okay, so it's not anything that, it's just basically saying it up front, so that they know that the committee is going to it's going to screen and review and make the recommendations, put in that order, and then it's going to ultimately, like you said, it's going to get to the board. So a lot of little things I just added on there. That's really tricky. Purpose and scope, I said it's to provide legal counsel services to the board, because by policy, the legal services is for the board and administration, but it basically to the board, who then delegates to the administration, the right to make use of legal services. That's the way it works. But that's just being small. I did add this, let's take a look at page 3. You have this, okay. On page 3,
I got it.
scope of work.
This is me.
If you could give him a copy.
Yep.
And, this is one thing that I'm gonna suggest board that we add. Expresses our uniqueness here in the Mexico County Schools. We have 3 tribes. And, over the years, we've always had, legal matters involving tribes. So what I suggested in number 5 is that we put a semicolon, is that what it is? Yeah. Semicolon, it says interpretation, can you see that? Interpretation of state and federal laws and regulations relating to the district's operations. Then I put semicolon, tribal legal relations, comma, the Indian Education Act, comma, and legal implications of Yazzie Martinez on district operations.
I have a comment on that. One of the things in speaking with Mr. Manning and him overseeing a lot of procurement was that he highly recommended when we spoke, when was that we met with Mr. Manning? September, beginning of
First time September.
I think it was September, but he said one of the things that we should not do as a board is get too narrow and specific. Because if you narrow and specific things, then I'm understanding what you're saying, but I'm just adding in his commentary. If you get too specific, then you are doing your pigeonholing, if you will. So the example he gave us in the meeting was years ago, he dealt with a district who, under procurement, said that they wanted Xerox copy machines with a 0.3 second per sheet thing. Well, that excludes too many other things. And so he said that as a board, we have to be very careful not to be too specific about things, because then it looks like you're gonna be favoring, maybe only one firm if that was their specialty and no other firms had that specialty. So I'm just saying we have to be cautious in getting too specific with things. I don't think what you said was too
Well, I
specific.
think all of them are involved with this area.
I
I'm
agree,
just thinking, because when I think about all the firms that are in the state,
yes,
they all will have
yes,
school districts that have native tribes.
yes,
So what it does, it doesn't really narrow it, it just kind of clarifies for us,
right,
recognizing that this is just one aspect of it,
yes,
and that it basically enables them to realize that this is an area of importance to the district, as it has had over the many years I've been here, it has had issues with respect to trying to work with tribes, and we need to ensure that they recognize that that's an important aspect of it, and it makes it clear to the tribes that we do believe that it's important that we protect the interests of the district when it comes to local control. that's what this basically does. It basically says is that we need to ensure that we're trying to address our interests as we relate to the tribes. And all of the attorneys all have expertise or have people involved with it. I can't think of any one of them who has not had.
I agree, sir.
So what I'm just saying that's, it could actually be big, downsides to just saying tribal relations as, something of that sort, then the
I
kind of
agree,
is-
but I think it needs to have its own number. I don't think it should be as a part of that, because I think interpretation of state and federal laws and regulations relating to the district's operations
Gotcha.
needs to be its
So
own.
what she's suggesting is, what I
It
would
would
suggest.
be its own number,
Okay,
whether it's number, 6 and everything else gets bumped
Which
down.
I'll add, I think that that's a good balance to strike, because the last thing that you wanna do, especially with professional services, is have somebody sit across the desk from you and say, that's not my job.
Right,
It's not in the scope of work. So if you can be more inclusive with the language.
Right.
That allows us to have more coverage in those areas.
so my point, sir, was
Restate it.
not to exclude what you were saying, but just a cautionary point from, Manning and Associates. So in that, it's not wrapping those two things together, because I think they are two separate.
you could also, give it another point. All of them are 20. In the categories, is there one of those scope of work are 20? Sure. And so, what I was thinking is that if you put it into that one, then it's just one aspect of it. What you're saying is that it may be best to just separate it out
Mhm.
and have it be its own.
Yes, sir.
And how do you guys feel about that?
It's better because you can see where special education is a separate
Special
section.
education is a separate
You've got the
entity.
labor, employment in its own place. And of course, tribal treaties should be in there,
Yeah,
like
and
you said,
housing
the
like this
treaties.
is a big one that the state has to do, all the districts have to deal with it. And so every one of the law firms are having to address all of it. Everyone, 89, particularly those who have Native American tribes in their boundaries. That's the only thing that I could see that I thought might be germane to us, and that it kind of points to them is that, if you all have experience in this area, we just consider it to be an important area that we want you to provide services to that, Mr. Wagner, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea. I think it kind of goes along with what you're both saying, I'm thinking about your tractor reference. Well, we might want a tractor that has an air conditioner, and so I think this very much meets our community and what we do. I think we could add it as another number, it could be, so right now there's 12 things in the scope of work. We can add that one. Another thing that Mr. Manning said was, he said, as long as you have the RFP, you can accept all, like, let's say we had 3 law firms that applied. He said, you can accept all, as long as you have the RFP in place. It's kind of like your seatbelt. As long as you've got the RFP in place, you don't have to just select one. We
Yeah,
can.
well, you can decide,
Mhm.
you, to decide which one you feel specialized in the area that the administration is comfortable with.
Correct.
And so a lot of districts have multiple attorneys and bills, and they have some for, say, like leases, and we use one gentleman for leases and bonds, and then others for special ed, et cetera. So we do have multiple, and we would give out multiple awards. But that's at the district discretion. And so we would decide that. They don't tell us, we decide who we want to use.
Well, and I think the point there, though, is that if, you know, we saw that there were two firms that were equal with what they, you know, could offer us, but one, you know, really super specialized in tribal affairs and needs, we could certainly accept them just as much as we accepted, you know, another firm that we thought was gonna be better representing, you know, specific board needs. It wasn't just a one-stop shop kind of thing. That's
Yeah.
what Mr. Manning shared with us.
So I'll be glad to give this to you, and so that you'll have a copy, and you'll have a copy, so we can work from that. And then down to that section. It says here that on page 7, it says that the sequence of the flow of this is that the procurement manager will issue RFPs. And once this is all cleaned up and all the dates have changed and he issues it and publishes it. And if they have questions, they have a timeline to ask questions. And then they respond to the questions, and then they submit their proposals. And then there's an evaluation committee that evaluates the proposals. They're the ones who rank order review the applications, and they rank order them. So we'll have a pretty good idea where they rank.
One thing that we can do as well, if we wanna flush this out, is we can actually have an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications. So you can send that to 100 law firms. They can tell you what they do well, and then you can kind of sift through that and say, I mean, it's kind of like Burger King, you can have it your way, where you can build it out exactly for what our scope entails.
Gotcha, understand that.
And Dr. Guy, if you look back on page 4, what Mr. Widener was just talking about was a multiple source award, letter E.
Yes,
So I believe that's what we were just,
it's covered.
yeah,
It's covered. So you would talk with the board and saying that, we'd like to consider, offering multiple awards. And then we would discuss, whom we would want to, but we would probably use the best ordering. So if you've got them in rank order and top 3, and they seem to fit the bill, then you may decide one of them is going to be, specializes in special education. It doesn't need to do that. And then, and it could even be more, but basically that, it's just it's a decision that you will entertain with the administration, Mr. Wagner and the board ultimately, who we're going to award it to.
And that's what I'd like to do, Dr. Archambault. I'd like to field it and then bring all of the options to you guys, share the rubric with you, and then if we have qualifications and
If you have recommendations, you're gonna get it from the evaluation team, and the evaluation team is gonna say, well, we think this firm is going to be the one that will do the most work with you. And
For you
maybe
guys,
another
yeah.
one might be special, so we're not gonna know, we're going to rely on you and the evaluation committee to, inform us of this. We can also, what I like to see that's a little bit different is that if we get the rank orders, and those are the ones that we know are ranked, and if we say to ourselves, what President members of the board is that we might consider having 4 being offered a contract. We could, I would like to think, be able to have them make a presentation to the board.
we could do that.
And it still doesn't change anything other than us getting acquainted personally with them. because the work has been done. All we would want to do is just to put, names to, faces to the firm.
Firm.
And I don't think we would want to go through an extensive review. All we're trying to do, I would think, is to get acquainted with those firms and get a sense of who they are. Then ultimately, administration and the board will decide, what it is, and you're gonna make a recommendation. We're the ones who ultimately, approve the award of 3, 4. Or we could do 2 and then say later on, if it's at our discretion whether we wish to do, some additional in the spring. You may find an issue that, you may, consider that there's another firm that maybe, you would like to propose to retain into the contract. Just wanna see how we can be flexible, and at the same time, try to,
Cover our
cover
bases.
your bases and address what you think is the best fit for the district.
Perfect.
That's about it. That's all that I have.
What I did see in there was, like I said, I thought it kinda narrowed down the field because you have to have worked with the PD for 3 years also. That's in there too.
Things like that.
So Johnny's uncle working out of the garage isn't
Right.
probably
Well,
gonna
that's what I'm
be an
saying.
option.
What if they don't, a lot of the ones that we're thinking of, they haven't even had their 3 years. And I don't know if they're counting that, let's say you have one employee that you hired that's worked with the PD, would that count? Let's say I have a firm and I have a person that works with me, would that count as it being 3 years of being with the PED? Cause that's number 2 on here.
What page are you on?
And
4?
on 4, the same one, it says experience in New Mexico, it says offers must have a minimum of 3 years experience providing in New Mexico public education.
I would imagine that's the whole firm.
So that's what I mean, it would, I don't know, like I said, that will whittle out everybody and whoever, they'd have to for sure have the 3 years working there,
Yeah,
including the rest of the scope that we have here.
that's true. You're right. They would need to have that experience.
Well, and that would probably easily be seen on whatever they were, submitting and would be kicked out if they didn't meet that.
Like in my facility, I have 27 years experience in physical therapy, because somebody says, what's the experience in your business? It's the same thing here, what is the experience? They say, oh, well, we have one person that's got 3 years in the PD, I mean, how would that work? What's the language to this?
Well, the evaluation committee is going to sort through this stuff for us. And so we would rely on them having evaluated and giving us the information. They can say, we've evaluated this firm and this firm is ranked this way because of the information
Requirements.
provided in the RFP. So the RFP is there. So I think there's 2 things that I'm suggesting, is that to include that Indian Ed tribal dimension, and what's, Madam President said was to see if you can work a separate, requirement, scope of work, also with scoring. And then the second part I was suggesting is that we have them introduce themselves to us, those who we have considered are going to be the finalists, so to speak. And that's not for us to recreate what they did. We're only going to just get
Get to
acquainted
know
with
them.
who they are.
That way you know. If-
Yes,
Yeah,
if they would be a fit or not.
If you,
yeah,
or you have a face, somebody you can call.
Yeah.
and then we can see how, because then that would support how the evaluation team saw it. Then we can say, yes, we see what you saw. And this is how we would seek to do that. So I think that would be what, and that's the only thing that I found.
Sure.
And I have my copy here of this little,
Are you okay if we get a copy of that and make those changes? Additions?
yeah, I can give this to you. There's a lot of other things I put on there, just to look at the-
I appreciate you
the
doing
one
that.
was the adding of the tribal relations one. And the
It's
other
important.
is to include the interview of the finalists by the board. And so if you can work that into the sequence filter.
Sure.
Because it says then it goes right to
Back on
award.
page
Well,
8.
that's what that was, because that was the mandatory
Yeah.
specifications, that's what I just was
And
wondering.
we have an action item in a little bit. And we probably should talk timeline. How soon would you guys like to field it?
That's what she's saying on chat. on
If we
Saturday.
make, Mr. Jones could make the changes by the end of the week. And
Can we put it on the board agenda for,
I think we'd have to see all of those before we could take action. So
Correct.
very likely, this action item will need to be tabled. Because we're gonna need to see what that timeline is gonna be in regards to what the rest of our school year is, because we're looking at Thanksgiving week being off, coming back to a board meeting right when we come back, and then having another board meeting, and then we're on break. So we need to look at what the best option is gonna be, because when we're having a committee looking at it and scoring, I'm sure a lot of those people are gonna be here. And so if everybody is off, then we might need to take that into consideration as well.
if we can approve at least the RFP, final language of the RFP, then you can work out the game plan that's realistic.
I think that's a great idea.
Yep.
We can get it and
Table
we can
this
come
and
back to the December 3rd meeting and then,
be ready to,
You actually could do the approval of the RFP,
yes,
and then you'll then have to
timeline it,
timeline the rest of it. I think it's gonna go into January.
agreed.
probably we want to give them the whole month of December to
Well,
get it together.
yeah, I would like to encourage us to not be on the committee. Okay,
Agreed.
because, and like Walter said, it's like what Neil said, is that we need to just kind of, let them do the work,
Yes,
and we'll do our portion of it, and once they get completed, they send it off to us,
agreed.
then we'll, that's what I think.
Perfect.
Okay.
Very
Well,
good.
you do my
Let me just
Any,
add a few things, is that okay?
Yes,
So,
please,
first,
sir.
once we put out the RFP, we need to allow for 30 days so that we can entertain RFPs. The second thing is an RFP is not an obligation to purchase. So if we got a bunch of RFPs, but no one fit the scope of work appropriately, we have no obligation to award any contract with any one person or 3 people or whatever. So also, my word of caution, procurement law is cut and dry, and you're either within compliance or you are out. In the event, let me back up for a second. We can also request in the RFP resumes of personnel that will be working with us and those types of things, because the president of the company and the person that's here are not the same people, and we want to know them. So this is not, my intention is not to give legal counsel to any one person or any member of the board or anybody in this room. But we have to be careful when we are meeting people that we could potentially be doing business with, and it needs to be totally on the up and up and totally transparent. Because if there is suspicion that there has been some collusion that we have participated in, or, you know, we really would like for you to get the bid, and it's so nice to put a name to the face and those types of things, you all can get in trouble. So we need you to guide, and you have the authority basically to approve or deny because it's a budget item. I mean, it's money that we will be spending anyways. But my suggestion as well is to outline what needs to happen and then trust those on the evaluation committee to do their job and protect yourselves from any scrutiny.
The only time we're gonna be involved with this is gonna be
After
when
scoring,
we approve the RFP, then we're done. And then we'll wait until
after scoring.
process,
Mhm.
and then we will only know the final number. And
Like I said, I was just looking at the mandatory specifications, like you said, those
Yeah.
fall under law, and I was just wondering how they gauged the 3-year experience.
we'll give it up to Mr. Irviner and the administration. I don't have any questions.
Mr. Jones will work on having draft for December 3rd.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Appreciate your time this evening. Mr. Widener.
Tonight I've asked Mrs. Griego to come kind of give us an update on everything happening with special education in our district. She's working very closely, she's been at a few trainings where she's been involved in stuff, and she's also working very closely with the Office of Special Education out of the governor's office in the state of New Mexico, and so I've asked her to kind of give you an update.
Thank you.
So, good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Widener, and directors in the audience. So I didn't make it very long of a presentation. I shortened it even more sitting next to Mr. Chipplehorn. One of the things,
only 100
Mr.
slides.
Widener had said that I work real close with the Office of Special Education from NMPED, and I shared a little bit of their vision with you there, which coincides and works very well with our district's vision. Our vision is be the change, every student every day, building a person for life. And then the Office of Special Education, the vision is all students with disabilities are engaged in high quality curriculum and instruction within inclusive educational environment opportunities that leads to deep learning, which results in college, career, and community readiness. And that's building a person every day. A couple of new things that we have going on in special education this year. We just recently recertified and certified some staff members to be CPI trainers. So we have a certified staff person at every school site, except for Blue Water and San Rafael, and Cebolleta. However, we do have our staff that bring those folks into our trainings. So we have 5 new CPI trainers, and then we have 3 that returned that are recertified. And if you're not familiar with CPI, it's where we de-escalation to make sure that we are calming down our students and we are taking into consideration all events that are happening in their lives at that time. So that's something new. We onboarded a behavior specialist. This is Lydia Sandoval. She works in our district 1 day a week, and she travels through all of our school sites. So she supports our staff and our students, and through observation and feedback. She'll take a look at a situation and she gives feedback to the teacher, to the administrator, and then I also get that feedback so that I can follow up on it and check how's it going. Are these strategies working? Do you need more support? And so we can reflect on that, what's working and what's not working. She's wonderful. She loves working with our district. We also onboarded a social worker, Jana Summers. She works 5 days a week, and she also works with several of our students in the district at all of our school sites. We did not have a social worker in our district, so this was a need. And then again, a social worker works with the whole child, with their personal things going on in their life, but they also work with the families and outside resources, whatever is needed. Social work is the whole child. And then I also wanted to talk about, we have onboarded some new special education teachers. And some are brand new to the district. However, we have some that were in roles that were general education teachers and have decided to move over to the special education side because we're so fun.
That's great.
So, yeah, it is fun, and we are so excited. So we brought over a general education teacher from Blue Water, San Rafael, and she was a general ed teacher, and now she's a special education teacher. She is amazing. She loves the 2 communities. We also brought over a general ed teacher from Mount Taylor to special education site. She is also wonderful, loves her community, loves her students, loves her staff. And then we onboarded a brand new teacher from Arizona that came to Los Alamitos. And then I think we have another special education teacher that will be new to our district that will be onboarding in December that will work a resource room at Mount Taylor. So I'm so excited. So that leaves us very few vacancies. They're coming on board, which is good. That means we're moving in the right direction. We also have a new childhood specialist, Desiree Lopez. So Desiree Lopez has worked in my department since I moved into special education. I kind of inherited her. She is amazing. She was a pre-K teacher for Milan for many years, and she has a lot of background experience in early childhood. So in our special education department, she managed our early childhood with our supporting schools, because we are the LEA for all of the early childhood. That would be our Laguna Department of Education, our Haku Early Childhood, our RAMA Early Childhood, our Grants Head Start program. And then now she oversees our 3Y and our 4Y programs. She's got a lot on her plate. She's learning letters. She's learning how to lead as an administrator in early childhood, but she loves it. It's a little bit of drinking from that fire hose, but you know what? She has the background and the experience. It's nothing. It's nothing. She's doing an amazing job. So I wanted to talk about her on board. Then I think that's the, no, it's not the last one. Gifted. I also oversee our gifted department. And so our gifted department, which is, we're a team of 3. And we will, again, I keep talking that we will be expanding soon. This year we did a little bit of traveling and professional development together. The 3 of us went to go and observe an Avid school site, Capitol High School in Santa Fe, which was amazing. We brought back a lot of information that will support us at the high school level, the middle school level, and then take some of those strategies that they use at both campuses or at the secondary level to use at the elementary level. So that was a good conference. And then we all 3 went to the New Mexico Association for Gifted Fall Institute Conference. And the theme for that conference was Beyond Brilliance, mapping the constellations of giftedness. Giftedness is unique. We are growing our gifted program, as I had mentioned the last time we spoke. Again, our gifted program expands because we get to create our own norms for our school sites, meaning that we have teams. In the past, gifted were evaluated by diagnosticians, and with the new rule for special education where we have to take any recommendation if a student wants their child or a teacher wants their child evaluated. That has put a lot more on our plate. So the gifted, now that we get to do gifted teams at school sites, that's taken a little bit of the work off of our diagnosticians, but now it's put it onto our gifted teachers because they can do the testing and we're gonna get better at it. Last year we did paper pencil and we sent off our testing protocols to be evaluated. It took quite a while. But what I just found out today from one of our school psychologists is that a lot of our testing protocols are going to be electronic based. We will probably no longer, within the next 2 years, we are gonna move into digital screening and digital testing. So we will get results back faster. So we're looking into that to see with our new universal screening for second graders and any other recommendations that come our way, that we can send those off electronically and hopefully get our scores back. We did run into a little bit of a few snags because it's nice as a parent when you are told that we are sending off, we're gonna evaluate your child with that new universal screening for gifted. and, but they don't qualify. And so that's just under that protocol. Again, we create our own norms, but it took a while. So we're working on that to get our letters, our formats out there, our information back to our school sites, to our parents, our community, about that. We're still working on the norms. We're tweaking them at every school sites because what will be the norm for gifted qualifications for Mount Taylor Elementary will be different than the gifted norms for Blue Water and San Rafael. So we're building that process and we're getting better at it. I have a strong team, Ms. Hobbs and Mr. King. And then the last one there, that NMAEA, that was for art in the schools. And Mr. Lysandra, so one of our new qualifications in gifted is art, it is art. And so we are quite not there on how we score that or support it. So he went to a training for art in Santa Fe. He is also going to go, and he presented, as a matter of fact, he presented at that conference in Santa Fe. He is going to go to another conference in, I think it's Kentucky, I'm not sure, in second semester, and I think he's going to present as well. And then he also got accepted to the School of Art Leaders of the National Art Education Association. So he is moving, he's trying to figure out how we are going to get more students that qualify through art. One of the things that I did want to share when we went to that the Fall Institute conference, I learned a lot at that one. And so we were broken up into different sessions that we could go to. But one of the ones that I sat in, it was titled, "But I'm Gifted. Why is writing so difficult?" And so if you are familiar or unfamiliar with gifted students, they have good things that they do. Again, they're not always the A+ student. They excel in something that is really, really strong, that they like. And then other things, it could be math that they're not so strong in, and they kind of kick that to the curb. And so, again, that is a very typical, and a lot of gifted kids do not like to write. So one of the cool things the presenter talked about, where he said he brings in writing in so many engaging ways. He says they start off writing in journals every day, and he doesn't read their journals. He says he'll give them a topic and they write. He'll give them a time, 10 minutes, and they just write. And then what they do on Wednesdays is like they'll have a writing Wednesday. Well, they'll spend a little bit more in-depth time. I think he had talked about it like half a day. They would do it just writing. And so they would be able to go back to their journal and pick something that they were gonna talk about and write about. But to get their mind flowing, he talked about little things like he would start to engage them at the beginning of the day with words or phrases with holes in them. Or another one he talked about was like trick questions. And so he would present a question to the students every day, and he says, we would not spend any more than 5 minutes on it. He would present the question, and then it was 5 minutes, and then that was it, timer, it was gone. And if they answered it, they answered it. If they didn't, the next day they would start off again with that same question, 5 minutes. You got an answer, you got an answer. That was the hook that got everybody into class every day, because they were waiting to see who was gonna be the one that answered that question. And I thought, that is brilliant. That was the hook to get him in there. And so it starts getting that conversation going, and then he would build those questions for their journal writing based off of something, maybe a topic that somebody brought up. And so, again, that's how you get them to write. They talk and they write. They're engaged. So I thought that was brilliant.
Very good.
And then lastly, in our special education department, we have been on a little professional development learning. We go to professional development, but we have outside of our district, but we have also been on a professional development tour, meaning my department has been going to school sites and providing professional development. One of the things that I started this year is I have gone to the PLCs at the elementary schools. I've been to the 3M schools on Thursday. I get to spend the day professional development at the PLCs for Cabero Elementary. And all I'm going over are 3 topics for IEPs. And I get to bring the general ed and the special ed and the administrators. And it is amazing how just the 3 things that I go over, the qualifications of a student, their goals and accommodations and modifications, I feel, now I can't speak for them, but I feel they left knowing a little bit more than what they came in. And we are in small groups, maybe 4, 5 people at the most, and they get to ask those questions. You know, what do you have? What's your question? And there are a lot of misunderstandings, but we're building their knowledge better. Because as like the conversation before, I live in that world of rules, regulations, and law, which I have come to like and appreciate a lot. But that's where I live, rules, regulations, and law. I share information that is free every month from CES. They give out free professional development from gifted to behavior, co-teaching, cooperative learning, all of these topics free. And then another one is the behavior support person from Miss Sandoval. She also does presentations. I think our last half day, she did a presentation for Cabero Elementary. I think staff from Mount Taylor Elementary attended. And then I also shared it with Mr. Valdo, and he sent that link out for his Title VI, because everybody struggles a little bit. What do I do with the student that's behavior? What do I do with the student that is autistic? So she also supports us with professional development and whatever our school sites or my department needs. So that was a little bit fast and furious, just for Ron. And if there are any questions?
Thank you so much. Board members, any questions?
No, but I just have something that I've experienced with autism or autistic student or whatever. He was coming in for therapy and he hated to read and he hated to write, but he wanted to learn how to drive. He says, you do physical therapy, can you teach me to drive? And I was like, I told his mom, he wants to drive. And she said, do you think he could? I said, he probably could, but he'd have to take the driver's test. So anyway, that got him motivated, and guess what? He started reading because he wanted to drive. And he passed the test and he's driving all over Grants. Now he lives in Albuquerque and he's driving in Albuquerque.
That's great.
Many of our autistic students in our community here we call them twice exceptionals. So they have a disability, which would be autism, but a lot of our autistic students do one thing really, really well, like our gifted students. And so they are also gifted. You know, they may not like rules, they don't like to read, but if they want something or they do something really, really well, they do it with fidelity.
He went in
to
a
the
whole different
best.
direction. He got a job, he's able to fill out, he changed his whole ways because he wanted to learn how to drive. And I said, well, you have to learn how to read. I was seeing him for physical reasons.
Yeah.
But he thought, hey, if you can teach me to do this, can you teach me to drive? And I was like, well, I probably could, but I don't know, you'd have to read stop signs and all this stuff.
read.
And he was he changed his whole ways after he learned how to drive. He was able to work. He worked for the city with us, and now he's working in Albuquerque somewhere.
The educator in you, when you get tired and you need some more time, come on board. He wants to hire you.
But I let him use my car. We taught him, and yeah, he did it. He succeeded.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Priego. Mr. Widener.
So tonight I have asked our assistant principals to join us to come talk about the student disciplinary handbook. They worked to update it this summer. It is still not completely updated. It's kind of like the RFP and needs some work. And so we may not wanna consider this a first read, we may have to do, but I did ask.
0.5 read.
Yes, this is a 0.5 read. So I asked Ms. Sanchez and Mr. Garcia to come and talk about their process and how the changes that they made to the student disciplinary handbook.
So thank you, Madam President, School Board, Superintendent, and Directors. We appreciate you listening to what we've been working on. The assistant principals throughout the district got together with Mr. Schuster, who is the hearing officer liaison. We sat in here for half a day and then we communicated through email. So this has been a process to, I guess, to revamp the disciplinary handbook, because, you know, we said as kids evolve and schools evolve, the handbook has to evolve. And we noticed that a lot of schools weren't aligned with how we were giving discipline throughout the schools. So we decided to come together and work together with all the assistant principals and say, okay, if an elementary student gets this kind of discipline, how do they progress to middle school, to high school, and that they're used to what is expected from them. So alignment was like our first goal. The second goal was to add things that would help our students stay in school and realize the mistakes that they make. Sometimes they're minor, sometimes they're major. And so what we do request with this handbook is that we can amend a few things, because we noticed, I'll just give an example. When you look at physical attack on page 17, we had to add student to school personnel or other adults, because before all it had was student to student. So we did that based on how upset a student is, and we don't feel like it's right that they touch any human being, whether it's an adult, a school personnel, or another student. But we also agreed that on aggressive confrontation, it's two people arguing, causing a scene, they might bump each other, but there isn't any harm caused. But in between that, this is just an example of why we're asking for an amendment, there is a fighting. Middle school kids tend to fight more than they do attack or aggressively. So with the fight, and Mr. Garcia could probably give you more examples because of the age that he works with. But with the fight, it's a kid who might punch them in the shoulder and the other kid punches back in the stomach, but there isn't any extreme harm or injury to that student. So we were looking at the fight should go under something different, like mediation and ISS or suspension, and that there's steps to first offense, second offense, third offense, and so forth. Where physical attack is when a student is innocent, someone just comes up to them and starts beating on them, and there isn't another punch thrown from another student. So that's what we're looking at and why we're asking to amend this, because there's still a few things that are in the works as we look at this. Do you wanna add to that?
Yeah, so I think what we all agreed upon was that it was very subjective when it comes to discipline. A lot of it says it's up to the principal's discretion, you know. We wanted something a little bit more black and white. If you do this, you get this. If you do this, you get this. Because we found a lot of it is just left up to your interpretation. And so that's what we're kind of looking for, something a little bit more solid, a little bit more concrete. So that way, if you're, like I said, if you're at the elementary school and you do this is what you get, but you come to the middle school, well, you may get, I don't know, a sucker and go back to class. You know, we wanted to make sure that everything was aligned all the way up from elementary to middle school, so that way parents knew that have kids at different levels throughout the school district, that my kid does this, I know that they're gonna do this. And everything is uniform throughout the school district. And that's kind of what we were looking for when we did this, but I think all the assistant principals kind of agreed that that's the direction that we want to go into move forward.
Yes, and so this is why we're requesting, as we call it a half a read or first read, that we can amend a few more things as we communicate and talk. And then we're working with Ms. Sandoval as well, and Mr. Schuster puts his input. So with this handbook, there's just a few more things that we would like to add, and we took away principal's discretion in a lot of these, like you said, because we we want it to be consistent. But along with keeping our kids in school to learn, unless it's something major, then we know that there's has to be, we were just calling it progressive discipline. We want progression, we want, what are we learning from it? Adding the interventions in there and behavior plan and taking special education into consideration. How do we stay consistent? So that's part of where we are at with the student handbook, and we're hoping to get this done within the next month or so, so that we have something concrete throughout the school year. Comments about this?
I have a comment. It's a good idea, cause then that'll keep parents from juggling their kids from school to school, cause they don't like what this principal says, cause their policy says this. I'm gonna take mine to Milan, cause they can get away with this. So I think something like this would be solid if the kids would stay in place. Or they wouldn't be moving, I don't know how much they move around, like I said, I've only been here for 10 months and I'm learning a lot. Or going on, but they do, if we have one, this is a really good idea. What, is there anything in there about social media? I mean, I know there's cyberbullying, but
Yes.
you
We
know,
did
'cause now
have,
we're in a new age and now there's social media that's coming about even for employees and in different organizations and governments. But I do like the idea that way, cause parents will move their kids cause they don't like what you're telling them here. So then they say, well, we'll go to Milan, and that's what we allow. I don't, that's another thing, is,
Well, they'll try to play the adults.
Yeah.
Well, at this school, they, did this, and at this school, they did
so I
that.
think if we have
Get
one
that.
program, which is a good idea.
On the state level, Mr. Adamio, they're looking at those social media threats too, like when kids send out
Bomb threats.
forward a threat or whatever. We got a situation in Los Alamitos
But there
today.
should be a punishment for that too, or they should know if I do this, this is what's gonna happen. I like the idea, it's a good idea.
Board members, any other questions? I have a question for you. What is gonna be the requirement for parent acknowledgement of this? Going back years, remember that we had to sign a form before the first day of school that we had read the student handbook. This isn't just the student handbook, this is discipline. So is there gonna be a requirement as far as all families have to acknowledge this?
and there is, what we talked about was getting the student disciplinary handbook and adding it to the school handbook. So at the end, when they sign, they are signing to understanding what the school's expectations are, along with, we don't say that they understand, but they acknowledge that
They
it is
acknowledge this.
accessible. And that it's online, they can get it on the website. People who don't have internet can come get a paper copy at the school, but they do sign with the school handbook, because all of us, since it says GCCS, Grantsville County School Disciplinary, all we did is we want to tack it to the back of all of the schools' handbooks that we have.
Not necessarily that they agree with it, but they
No,
understand.
no,
Understand
just
that it's there.
acknowledge,
Yes.
yes, just acknowledge. Thank you
Yes.
for that clarification, appreciate
Yes.
that.
Presently, we can also send acknowledgements out through Synergy,
Yes,
so and to the parent portal.
very good.
We could do that too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all very
Good
much.
job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Mr. Widener, it's
All right,
you.
It's time for the superintendent's report, and I promised last week I would bring these topics back and kind of update you on everything going on. Mrs. Jones, you're welcome to chime in if you wanna help me. Our IPAC will have a meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3:30 on the 20th. They are working on their bylaws. They've been working with the attorney Don Vernoy and trying to make sure that they have a good set of bylaws. As I mentioned last meeting, the officers' terms ended on the 16th of November. And so we will be having to look at new officers and all of that tomorrow. And so Mrs. Jones has been working with Katie Ann Wanaco's office out of the New Mexico PED
It's from the federal, so it's Office of Internet Education in Washington DC
Okay,
that we've reached out to for guidance as well.
Yeah.
For moving forward because of the term ending with the officers and the bylaws. So we've reached out to her and to legal counsel for our next step, so we will follow the advice given from board.
perfect. And then, so we've kind of had to really kind of bring everything up to date, and so their bylaws were, Dawn did a lot of work on that, and they're pretty sound now, so we've got that ready. The IPP is tied to that because we have to have the advisory committee kind of help us, and so
So also I can speak to that with the IPP, our consultant from the Impact Aid office sent back the recommendations. There was some language missing in policy 2. And so I have added that language to policy 2. Mr. Valdo is going to schedule meetings with stakeholders so we can begin the revision process, which it was revised last year to update the method of notification to email, and that was the only thing that was updated. And that was the language that was missing from policy 2, so that, as of right now, is the only update. Other than that, it would be the same IPP that was in place last year, but we will still get the committee together so that they can look over that and vet it and make sure that that is the IPP, the set of policies and procedures that we want moving forward, or that the stakeholders want moving forward. And so we will schedule those meetings throughout December. Through the first 3 weeks of December, we will revise and have it ready for board approval the first board meeting in January.
and then finally, the tribal consultations, I did get another tribal consultation scheduled as of this afternoon. We are scheduled for the Acoma tribal consultation on December 10th. Thank you all for not responding to the email that you were all on and not being involved in that. And so you guys were blind copied on my response, and so any of you that wish to come, we can, I guess we could do a PSA for that. And so if there's more than 3 of you that wanna go to that consultation. Dr. Martin and Mr. Valdo are working very hard. Governor Herrera from Laguna asked us to come and talk to his tribal leadership group. And so Dr. Martin and Mr. Valdo are working on that, trying to compile the items he would like to see. And we should have that scheduled this week as well, correct, Dr. Martin?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I thought it was the 5th.
No, that was Governor, that was First Lieutenant Governor Chino from Acoma.
Oh.
And he was trying to schedule us on the 5th. Unfortunately, I'm out on travel we have a conference that we're taking a group to. And so we got it scheduled for December 10th.
I thought it was the 5th.
And then
Yeah, it got changed.
as probably board members, you probably know from my newsletter, cause you are so excited to read it every week.
Yes.
I've kind of been requiring the central office staff to be in the schools, to volunteer. You know, there's days where Dr. Martin was working as a kindergarten EA. There was one day Miss Griego was working in the cafeteria at Cubero, and you know, it's good for us to be back in the schools and in our roots. And so we've been doing that this fall. This month is really cool because we get to go and help with the Thanksgiving meals. And so all of the schools, they do a traditional turkey, gravy, mashed potatoes kind of dinner. And so we've all been tasked with being in different schools. I know Ms. Griego was at GHS today. Dr. Martin and I were at a training, and so you know, we're all trying to make sure that there's people there to help. Tomorrow I'll be serving lunch at Los Alamitos, and so it's neat, and it's a neat experience for our kids. It's neat how the teams, you know, they decorate decorate the cafeteria tables and they really make it special for the families, cause the moms and dads come and it's neat, it's a neat experience, so
Yes, sir.
I need to tell us go back to C. B and C, IPP is the one that is associated with the gate application, right?
correct, yes, sir.
So there's a timeline for getting that done. It has to be done, then you have to just basically submit it with the impact gate application at the end of January. So that's what you're trying to get done, is to finalize and get the tribes to sign off.
Correct. We're hoping to, well, and they also talk about waivers. And so that's an option as well, if our tribal leadership agrees that the IPP is okay as it is and,
So they can either sign the IPP or sign a waiver. The IPP, as I said, we are in the process of revising that and we're calling stakeholders and we'll start having these meetings in December. It will be ready for the first board meeting in January, which will be board approved. After it is board approved, then we will get signatures from tribal.
then we can go talk to them.
Okay, on the travel consultation, explain for the new board members what that really is all about.
Sure. We've had them, for years, as long as I've been here. We do consultations, Dr. Martin, when he oversaw federal programs, he was meeting every week with the different tribes and the different groups and they would do it on Zoom but the tribal consultations are a little more formal. We go in and present our data, and so when we talk to the Department of Dene, we go in and we take the data and the assessment scores and the information on our Navajo students and we talk about the curriculum, we talk about the Navajo classes, we talk about, the services that we're providing for our Native American students. And so we have them biannually, so we have them twice a year. And they sign at that, Mrs. Jones, they sign an acknowledgement of tribal consultation. And what is that?
The affirmation of tribal consultation is submitted with our title grants. That's a requirement that we submit with your assurances. We submit those to the state that we are participating in those tribal consultations.
So you did one with Navajo Nation, they signed up on it?
We did. We had one with the Department of Dene, the Department of Dene Education, and then we'll have the one with ACMA in 2 weeks, and then Dr. Martin's going to get us on with Laguna. So,
Okay.
and then we're part of that also, Dr. Archambault, was we're supposed to reach out to the chapter houses, and so Mrs. Jones is going to be working on that.
And that's at the request of the Department of Dene Education wants us to work with our local chapters too, which we do. We have a good relationship with Mr. Lewis and so
I just gotta go back up to the IPAC parent advisory, so you were saying they have term limits, so do you actually have parents that are waiting to get on board, or
We-
is it,
we
or do you
do,
get the
and-
same board members over and over again, even if they're termed out? I mean, do you always do that, how many seats is there?
As long as so there's three. You have a president.
chair, vice chair, and a secretary.
Yeah, and the idea is that each parent represents one of the tribes. So you have Laguna, Acoma, and Navajo, and so those are the three leaders. We're also required to have an educator, and only the voting people should be Native American. So, while we have principals there and that kind of, it needs to be Native American parents.
Parents or grandparents of name, parents or guardians.
So
of
you
Native
have
Do
to
you-
have
but
a
they-
student
You have to have a student
in
in
the
our
district.
district in order to
But do
be in
you,
a
does the
leadership
seats
position
get
or
filled
to be a voting.
consistently? I mean, is it like a stalemate where you just have the same parent that's coming?
No, well, in the 8 years I've been in the district, we've had several different leadership teams that have ran the IPAC. And so
Our current bylaws state that the term is for 2 years and that they can hold the same seat for a second term, but then that's
So that's the term limit question
yes,
you
so
were
that's our
asking.
term limits
But are we
currently.
actually, so,
Yes, sir.
and they're showing up to the meetings and. Cause sometimes people want the seat, but then they never make it.
Which we've had.
we've had that before too, so good questions. And IPAC they're important because they kind of help advise us on what we need to do for the kids. And those are those stakeholders that are involved with Yazi Martinez and the direction that we go. So they're important conversations and important meetings to have.
But you know that, I think we have to look into the federal Indian Administration Act Title VI, it does talk about, tribes being able to appoint a representative to the parent committee, you might research that, see what it says there.
And so
We were talking about that too, that maybe our governors wanna say, this is our person that represents.
I've reached out to the Office of Indian Education to ask them specifically about that because that's not how our bylaws are written. Our bylaws are written that there is a representative from the Navajo tribe, the Acoma, the Pueblo of Acoma, and the Pueblo of Laguna. And those three, along with the two student representatives and the educator, make the IPAC committee, and you take the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary from those three people. That's how our bylaws are currently written. So that's why I reached out to find out if
So
there
we're
are
compliant.
other ways like that other school districts do that, because with that, I told Lane, I said, it would be great if we could work with tribal leadership for them to appoint a representative for their tribe, and then they could work together, we would have a better representation of the three tribes.
Might work out where you'd have parents, one from each tribe, is a parent, and that's what you're referring to in the IPAC, as you were saying. And then you would have a tribal representative, but then maybe, provide a little bit more, representation and making sure that the tribes are aware that they're also responsible for supporting the IPAC in some fashion. But go ahead and take a look at that, see what it says. That's all I have to say.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Yeah.
If you're ready to go to action items,
Oh, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
and I recommend on action item A that we postpone it until the next table it.
This one is a table.
Or we just do no
Mr. Wagner, thank you for your recommendation. Board members,
Oh, okay. Madam President, move to table the building of the arcade services.
thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. It has been moved to table consideration of approval for fielding RFP board legal services to December 3rd, the next regular board meeting, by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Ortiz. Is there any discussion? Thank you. Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo?
Yes.
Mr. Hadamio?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Next is consideration of approval of a donation to Grants High School Student Council in the amount of $3,091.05. Superintendent Weiner, is there a recommendation?
I recommend that we accept this donation.
Thank you. Board members, is there a motion to approve a donation to Grants High School Student Council in the amount of $3,091.05?
I'll make the motion as stated.
And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve a donation to Grants High School Student Council in the amount of $3,091.05. Any discussion, board members?
What, do we need to know who donated it, or I'm just kind of,
It's
is
in
it
your
just a
packet.
donation out of nowhere?
It's in the
It's in your
packet.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it.
I was looking
It's
at
I didn't see
under
it.
Action item.
action. It's under action.
GCCS.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'll take any donation, I just
Right.
want to congratulate, thank them, you know.
Fair.
It's an estate and the alumni, the
Yeah, I missed it,
family.
it's there, I missed it.
Yeah. Anything further, board members?
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right, hearing none, roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Announcements, Mr. Leitner.
Lots going on. Again, we're still doing lunches and all of that this week. Upcoming on the 22nd, Laguna Acoma is hosting the Daniel Otero Memorial and
At
No.
10 AM?
10 a.m. and we can do a PSA for that as well if
Please.
there's a number of you that are planning to be there.
Please.
The district will be closed next week for the Thanksgiving break the fall break holiday. We have our next board meeting on December 3rd and I'll bring some stuff to share with you to that meeting. December 19th, we have a regular school board meeting. Between there on December 10th is the Acoma Tribal Consultation.
I have a correction. It should be the 17th, not the 19th.
Oh, that's correct. November 19th.
Correct.
Okay.
I think you wrote down today's date.
That's correct. And that's 14 days after the 3rd, so.
Yep.
And then you guys have your New Mexico School Board Association Fall Conference in Albuquerque. And I believe some of you are planning to attend that, and so Lorraine is making.
Yeah, she gave us some, I got mine.
Perfect. And then, the district will be closed December 23rd through January 2nd. And for the winter break and holidays. Future agenda items. I do plan to bring the IPAC officers, and the current officers could be on a second term but we'll have a officer introduction at a future meeting. I will update you on the tribal consultations. Dr. Martin can kind of share some of the information and we'll show you kind of what we share. Facility master plan needs to be in a work session. And so, yeah, we'll add that. Technology master plan, and then we're nearing the end of our 3 months with the Sharp contract, and so we need to revisit that. And Mr. Jones and his technology team will need to come and talk to us about the effectiveness.
We're in the 90 days, past 90 days or almost 90 days.
Started in October.
Are you gonna be able to present the FYI on the bylaws for the IPAC? At the next meeting, or do you think it's still gonna be,
I can share the bylaws. I think,
If it's available, if it's
If
ready,
you're okay with this.
if not, then you'll just,
Yes, sir, we hope to have those sooner rather than later.
and that is everything I have. Facility master plan, I wrote that down too.
We could put the RFP on there as well for December 3rd. think that's it. Board members, anything else agenda wise? All right, very good. Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation?
I recommend that we adjourn.
Thank you. Board members, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting as presented? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Ortiz and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to adjourn the meeting as presented. Mrs. Sandoval, roll call please.
Dr. Shambo? Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. The board adjourned at 7:23. I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your break and safe travels for anybody traveling and enjoy time with family. Happy Thanksgiving.